Thank you all for coming here tonight. It's great to see you again. So yes, I am Elizabeth Childs, and I decided to run last summer because after living and working in this district for over 20 years, I was disgusted. I was disgusted by the finger pointing and the demonizing on both sides of the aisle, and I believed that that finger pointing and that dialogue, that demonizing, was not going to get us to solutions that we need to get to for America. And solutions are what we need for our children. The course that we are on right now does not leave our children a country that will be prosperous and secure for the future. I believe that solutions come from us and that we take them to Washington, that we know what's best in our communities and in our families, and we take that to Washington. I come from a small Midwestern farming community, and where I come from, everybody works. I made a choice to go to college. I put myself through college, and I put myself through medical school, and I came out to Massachusetts, and I made it my home. And I fell in love with a great guy, a retired Navy and Navy Reserve veteran. We have 2 children in the Brookline Public Schools, and I've served my community in Brookline on the Brookline School Committee and town meeting. But it was my work as a doctor that got me politically active. I realized that I couldn't get the same outcomes for my patients in Dorchester that I could get for my patients in Brookline unless I got politically active. So I brought communities together around services for children and families in Dorchester. Many of those services today are still there and serve hundreds of families. And it was because of my track record of bringing a community together that Mitt Romney tapped me to be his Commissioner of Mental Health. And I proudly served under Mitt. He is going to be a great president. And I have been supporting him from day one. Under Mitt, we were able to save taxpayers dollars and improve outcomes for people. And because of that, President Bush asked me to come to Washington and appointed me to the National Institute of Mental Health Advisory Council. And I was proud to serve in that administration as well. That's the board responsible for sending dollars from the federal government out to the states in autism and psychiatric research. And Massachusetts was is the second recipient, actually, behind California for those dollars. It's an excellent piece of work that happens across the country. I want to tell you what I think we need to do to solve America's problems. The first thing we need to do is to stop racking up $1.3 trillion of debt every year. We cannot solve our jobs problem or our economy problem unless we get a hand around our spending. We need to solve this problem by tackling our tax problem. We need to simplify the tax code, lower the overall base rates, including the corporate rate, close loopholes and deductions, which gets government out of the business of picking winners and losers, and it broadens the tax base. And there is a bipartisan plan on the table called the Simpson-Bowles Plan that aligns with Paul Ryan's framework for doing tax reform. And it is also the same framework that Ronald Reagan used back in the 80s to usher in 2 decades of unprecedented growth. It is unconscionable that this president and this Congress cannot get this done when there is bipartisan support to solve this problem. On the spending side, we need to reform Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. I have spent my whole life taking care of people who are poor, sick, disabled, elderly, people that nobody else wants to treat. I want those programs to be there. They will not be there if we don't fix them. The regulatory environment is killing us. I run a small business, a small medical practice, and I can tell you that we need to start with health care. We need to repeal and replace the federal health care bill with a bill that makes sense, one that is visionary for patients and for our health care and our communities. That bill should make sure that every American has access to quality health care, that pre-existing conditions are covered, and that all of those solutions are implemented by state solutions. What works in Massachusetts is not what can work in Montana or Texas or Nevada. It's not the same place. We don't start from the same place. We need to redo this. When it comes to education, as you might guess, I am passionate about education. It gave me my opportunity. But it is criminal when in some of our schools a child is just as likely to go to prison as they are to graduate from high school. Our teachers must be for children, not for teacher union bureaucracies. And that is not to demonize teachers. Most of our teachers are working every day with hands tied behind their back. It is to recognize that the best teachers will tell you they are sick of the teacher down the hall that leaves every day at 2:30 and who can't handle the difficult kids, and they still have a job and they get paid more. That's not how we need to run our schools. When it comes to national defense, the world is dangerous. But if we are serious about security for our children, then we must stand with Israel. Otherwise, we are inviting nuclear holocaust across the globe. It is absolutely critical. Israel is our partner and our friend and our ally, and we should not hedge to the world in one little way about that. We have enemies like Iran, and we have to be prepared to stand up to them no matter what. I hate war, and we have to be very strategic before we go into any conflict. But there are bullies like Iran, and we better be prepared to deal with them. And hedging or pretending we're not strong enough or not willing to do what it takes is not the way to contain in Iran.
So Dr. Childs,
yes.
Could you entertain a few questions, Tom?
Yes, can I say one more thing? Tom, I'm almost done. Thank you. We are running a different kind of campaign, a very different kind of campaign. We are running a campaign to bring people together, not to divide and to demonize. And there are 3 reasons that I'm the only Republican in this race who has a road to victory against Joe Kennedy in November. The first one is that the district polls at 75% fiscally conservative and 75% socially moderate. That's who I am. That demographic fits me like a glove, and that's why I've lived and worked here in Massachusetts, in Brookline, for over 20 years. If you cannot draw the independent voters, many of whom are women in this district, you cannot win this election. And that is why I've been endorsed by Governor Bill Weld, Governor Jane Swift, Governor Christine Todd Whitman, Lieutenant Governor Carrie Healy, and immediate past GOP Chair Jennifer Nasser. It's because they recognize that that's what it's going to take to win this race. And lastly, it is critical that you deliver a superior message. If you have 5 smooth stones to throw at Joe Kennedy, who has money and name recognition, you better have a message that is clear and credible and is a real contrast for the voters of this district.
Thank you, Doctor. Do we have questions for the doctor?
Yes, Susan.
I have one. Speaking on your health question you had before, what do you feel about the, the fiscal responsibility and all that too? What do you feel about the current brouhaha going on about the Planned Parenthood and the people going in for gender-based abortion?
I am completely opposed to people aborting a fetus based on sex. But I think the solution there is an ethical responsibility of a woman's decision with her doctor and with God around what to do. I don't think that you can legislate morality. I think it's morals and ethics.
I agree with that too, but what about the federal funding of Planned Parenthood?
I believe that funding for family planning services is critical. And because I believe that, I also believe that family planning does extend to including termination for certain before viability. Yes?
You belong to a tribe.
I'm sorry.
You Indian, you belong to a tribe.
No, I'm Welsh and German. I'm proud of it.
Any more questions for Dr. Childs?
Terry.
As a doc, you spoke a little bit about in your spiel about healthcare. How do you see Romney Care, just as how it's worked in Massachusetts so far, and how would it work as a replacement, if that's all you could get by Congress, for Romney Care, for Obamacare rather?
Yeah, I think the plan that was done here in Massachusetts, I was in its administration when we did that. And it was built very specifically for Massachusetts. We only had 9% uninsured. We had $600 million of Medicaid funding on the line that we had to come up with an innovative proposal in order to keep that. We had a free care pool of dollars in which we could subsidize insurance. We had 3 large nonprofit insurers, and the healthcare services and their extensions in Massachusetts are almost 30% of our economy. So when you put together all of that canvas, the plan that was done here was a compromise to address all of those necessary constituencies.
One more question, please, Lynn.
It's about accountability. So one of the things that is really hard in Massachusetts is that you have Democrats really ruling the state. So if you go in as a Republican, how do you work with Democrats to make them buy into accountability?
Yeah. My experience with that as the commissioner is I went around to every door in the State House and I knocked on the door and I said, I'm here to do a mission. And that mission is about serving people. And 80% of the people that I talked to were committed. But when you focus on the mission and you focus on the job that needs to be done, and you focus on, are we going to measure ourselves by whether or not we got the job done, rather than whether or not we won the next election or won the next blog war or won, the next spin control, then most people will come together around that. And that's how I think it's accountable. You set out a goal.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thanks.